Again, good afternoon. My name is Mark Pompano. I'm the Director of School Security in the Newtown Public Schools in Connecticut. I've been in that position since August of 2008. I thank everyone for having me here today. I think this quote by Nelson Mandela speaks volumes, and this is really the reason why we're here. If you take a second to read it, children are the most vulnerable citizens in our society, and that they are due a life free from fear and violence, especially when they're in school. So this is the perspective of the Newtown Public Schools, at least since I arrived there in 2008, and how we look at school security from a more global aspect. Of these six components, planning, and I'm going to get back to give you a little historical perspective of what I walked into in 2008 and where we are now in Newtown. Planning existed only in the form of emergency response procedures. There really was no district emergency ops plan or individual school safety plans. Command structure was non-existent. Training in the schools basically consisted of one fire drill a month with an occasional lockdown drill thrown in once a year. That was basically it. Lockdown was the go-to procedure for most school incidents back then, and we've learned a lot since then that lockdown is not always the way to go. Structural enhancement, buildings in Newtown at the time were constructed solidly. However, exterior doors were left open or unlocked, and there was absolutely no visitor management system. Security personnel, originally it was myself and three unarmed school security officers. We were all assigned solely to Newtown High School. That's where I worked out of. My original contract, I was on a consulting basis with the other six schools, so to speak. Now in 2024, or actually since the tragedy in 2014, there's myself plus 20 school security officers, some who are armed, some who are unarmed, and we can talk more about the arming later. Intelligence community partnerships. There was a notable disconnect between staff and students at the high school. There was really no relationship other than the basic SRO program between the police department and the school system. There was little intelligence and no open communication. Some things changed prior to the Sandy Hook tragedy, but a lot changed in the aftermath of 12/14. So I'm going to talk about these six components. Planning, and I love this quote from Gloria Steinem, is human nature that when we do not plan about something and do not know about its outcomes, we lose interest in it. We do not work hard for anything that we did not plan for. Nothing could be truer than true with that. Planning, I believe, is the most essential component of school security and safety because students are our number one priority. And I think that speaks volumes, especially what happened this past weekend with former President Trump in Pennsylvania about planning. When evaluating, assessing school security in Newtown, we use the API model where we assess first. We want to identify our assets and potential risks. We want to research and develop initiatives and countermeasures as part of the planning process. We want to implement, which means we're basically going to put our plan into action and deploy our initiatives and countermeasures. Then we want to evaluate what worked, what didn't. Do we want to modify or replace something, or do we want to completely scrap an initiative or countermeasure? Which brings us back to the assess portion. And again, this is the way we look at school security in Newtown and pretty much throughout the state of Connecticut now. This is the model. In the Newtown Public Schools, we utilize an emergency operations plan that consists of an all hazards approach. It's basically planning for everything and anything you can think of. Our plan is updated annually, at least. By state law, it has to be updated at least once a year and submitted to the state at the beginning of the school year. We don't do security in the Newtown Public Schools in a vacuum. Have a great team. I have a great committee, our District Safety and Security Committee, which is made up of various experts and partnership with members in the community. The plan is reviewed and signed off by multiple signatories each year. Again, I don't do security in the Newtown schools in a vacuum. It's a team effort. School security is on deck approach, and I believe it is everyone's responsibility, from administrators, faculty, staff, and students, that we're all in and we're all involved. Continuing in planning, here are just some examples of our emergency ops plan in different annexes that are in the plan. Things just outside of the regular school day. We want to plan for athletic events, not only from a terrorism perspective, but what would you do if lightning struck or bad weather came in? How would you get somebody out of the stadium if they were severely injured? Things of that nature. Also, we do special events planning for our graduation, especially this past year was the year that the last children involved in Sandy Hook graduated. There was a lot of planning that went into that, but also for our theater events and our musical events. Members of the District Safety and Security Committee that I mentioned previously consists of the superintendent of schools, myself, the chief of police of the Newtown Police Department, the town's emergency manager, a board of education liaison, school principal, our director of facilities, our first selectman, which some terms we call first selectman in Newtown. It's the mayor of the town, our director of information technology. We have a subject matter expert from John Jay College of Criminal Justice who's been with us since the day of the tragedy. We also bring in our 3 private schools in Newtown. The headmasters of those schools are part of the committee, our transportation director, our supervisor of Newtown ambulance, a teacher's representative, and also a parent. So these are examples of the makeup of the district safety and security committee in Newtown. Again, it's a group effort and everyone is all in. The next facet that I want to talk about is command structure, communications. We use the incident command system in everything we do in Newtown, as does the state of Connecticut in their guidance to other school districts, including ours, that the incident command system be used. What is it? It is a standardized management system for small or large emergencies or non-emergency situations, or for planned or non-planned events. What is its purpose? It allows its users, being school security, school administrators, it allows us to adopt an integrated organizational structure to match the complexities and demands of a single incident or a multiple incident without being hindered by jurisdictional boundaries. So it's basically working together, folks from the schools, from the police department, from the ambulance, from the fire department, whatever the case may be. This chart here is a basic incident command system organization for schools. I call it the KISS approach to ICS. It's keep it simple. Each section or branch expands or collapses as necessary for the incident. At the end of the day, somebody has to be in charge. Then there's an operations team. Those are the people that do stuff. There's a logistics team. Those are the people that get stuff. There's a planning intelligence team. That's the planners. And there's an administration and finance team, and they're the folks that have to buy things and pay for things. When an incident occurs on school grounds that requires the response of the police, fire department, or ambulance, EMS, we work in what's called a unified command. There's one overall incident commander, which is determined by the nature of the incident. For instance, if it was some type of criminal act on a school ground, the school and the police department and perhaps EMS or fire, depending on the circumstance, would work in a unified command with the police being the ultimate incident commander and with a representative from the Newtown Board of Education as what we call the BOE incident commander. At the end of the day, no matter who's in charge or what agency leads the investigation or follow-up, it should always be the most qualified responder who assumes command. Egos, rank, title should not be part of it. It should always be who is the most qualified individual here present now to handle this incident and bring it to a successful conclusion. One must embrace ICS as the common point through which schools, emergency response agencies, parents, media, etc., utilize resources, manage student staff care, direct responses, share information, and so on. ICS links the needs of all these groups and provides a framework by which solutions are implemented or delivered. And the 3 circles that meet in the middle, that shows the different branches in the unified command structure. Continuing with command structure, in the world of education, individual school principals oftentimes want to put their own message out to parents during an incident. This kind of contradicts the tenets of ICS and will undoubtedly lead to disaster for the incident command. This is something that not only Newtown struggles with, but most school districts and police departments and fire departments. We really need one person, one voice, and that's the public information officer who works directly for the incident commander. The PIO, as that person is known by, answers only to the incident commander. Having one voice and one message assures timely and accurate information is disseminated and avoids confusion. In today's day and age with cell phones and mass media, chances are from the school setting, it is very difficult to beat these kids and parents. So we have to do our best to get out a timely message. Chances are it's going to be after word spread, but it's important that the message be precise and that there is follow-up messaging done on a regular basis. The last thing we want, because it's just instinctive, I'm sure many of you, if not always, have children, to want to rush down to the school when something happens, and that will lead to disaster in its own right. So again, a PIO one message goes out. If individual school principals would like to put out their own message, it should be after the incident and only with the approval of the incident commander through the PIO. This is another example of a school-based ICS org chart to stress the importance of the communication officer, also known as the PIO, in the chain of command. Up here you can see public information officer reports directly to the incident commander and the command team. Again, it avoids confusion and it ensures that the messaging is spot on. This brings me to training. And this quote by Seymour Papert hits home to me. You can't teach people everything they need to know. The best you can do is position them where they can find what they need to know when they need to know it. We want to set up our people for success. Working the school system, it's tough. Time is short. There's a lot of things that take up time, and we try to fit the training part in there. So we have a solid written emergency operations plan in place, and all our employees, especially our building administrators, are familiar with the plan and have ready access to it during an emergency. To me, you will only perform as well as you train. So in Newtown, when we do training drills, that we practice them with some reality to it. Something as simple as a simple fire drill can be enhanced by blocking a door, blocking a stairwell, things of that nature. Again, it's tough due to time constraints, costs, employment contracts, and a willingness to learn and be critiqued. That's a hurdle for many people, but we really need to get over it because we always want to continue to improve, and receiving critical feedback is important to growing one's knowledge base and expertise. The types of training we do in Newtown, we hold regular monthly emergency response drills at each school. We do what's called drill week. So we hold our 5 primary drills during the first few weeks of school. Staff and students receive information regarding these drills over the summer, so they don't come as a surprise. We don't do spot drills or shock drills of that type. It's known, but we do practice these drills. The reason we do drill week, really, it came about several years ago, is we were finding that due to constraints, timing, bad weather, so be it, that we're doing a lockdown drill in April or May when the school year is almost over. It really made no sense. So we like to get these drills done up front so everybody has a taste of it. And then again, moving out monthly, we do fire drills plus quarterly one other drill, whether it be a lockdown drill, a shelter in place, or some type of ICS planning. In Newtown, we've learned from some events that, as I mentioned before, lockdown is not necessarily the procedure you just want to jump to. It does absolutely have a time and a place. The time and the place was Sandy Hook, unfortunately, back on December 14th of 2012. But we've learned that shelter in place probably should be the default response, absent a clear and present danger, imminent threat, is the best way to go, especially when we know the police are arriving to the school. Again, communications can be tough sometimes, and people hear things, especially under stress, that may or may not be true. But having the police be able to walk into a school building that's controlled, there's nobody roaming the hallways, kids and staff are in a room, everybody's accounted for, is a much better situation for the police. Lockdown, our response criteria is the last resort. Active shooter drills, it's a very touchy subject. It's not something that we have done robustly in Newtown. We do practice certain elements of it. We are not an ALICE district. There is a program called ALICE in the United States that many school districts use. If you were to research that on your own, you'll see it's pretty intense. And even here we are, going on 12 years following the tragedy, the psychological healing is still ongoing in Newtown. I'm not sure if we'll ever get fully there, but as it comes to active shooter drills, I have to be very careful with how we go about doing those. Next, I'd like to talk to you about security personnel, to arm or not to arm. I can share with you that At the time of the tragedy, we did not have an armed presence, so to speak, in any of our schools. We had a school resource officer who was a Newtown police officer in the high school. We had an SRO also in the middle school. They served multiple duty. They were also the town's youth officers and did the juvenile investigation. So they were not solely dedicated to being in the school at that time. After the tragedy at Sandy Hook, back in 2012, we have had a continuous armed school security presence in all our schools since then, and we continue to do so. We were not the first district to do that. We looked at two districts. We did a field trip with the members of our district safety and security committee to a town of Enfield, Connecticut, and to the town of North Branford, Connecticut. We looked at their two programs because there was a lot to go into it. If we're going to have armed security, how did we want them? Do we want them in paramilitary uniforms? Did we want concealed carry, open carry? We sided more with the North Branford, Connecticut program. Softer clothes, concealed weapon. Security officers are part of the fabric of the school community, and it's worked out really well. Armed school security, they operate under Connecticut state law that allows for them to carry a weapon during school hours on school grounds or any event off grounds that the school has reserved, be it proms or dances or anything like that. Unarmed school security officers in Connecticut have to be licensed, as I am. My people work under an employment contract. They're generally contracted to the number of school days. In Newtown, it's 182. We do have a minimal security presence during the summer because we do have summer school events. It works for Newtown. It might not work for everyone, but intelligence and community partnerships, at the end of the day, this is also an important facet. In Newtown, we have what's called the Newtown Juvenile Review Board. The state of Connecticut wanted to stop the school to pipeline prison or detention centers for kids. So they entrusted towns to set up juvenile review boards. I'm a member of the review board. I actually chair the review board with members of the Board of Ed, but members of other community groups as well. And what we do is we request from the Newtown Police Department, they have a youth was arrested for a nonviolent crime, let's say it's graffiti or something, rather than send that child to the juvenile court, he or she's sent to the juvenile review board. And we do a lot of things. We hear from the child, we hear from the parents. At the onset of the program, kids came in there with the thought like, oh, I'm just going to get community service. That's not the case. Oftentimes we have them do different things. And we try to find them something that they're interested in doing. And it's worked out really well. And from that perspective, during those juvenile review boards, we gain a lot of intelligence because to me, the one common denominator in most school shootings is that the perpetrator told or projected to someone else their bad intent before they carried out the act. Somebody knew about this. Our schools also have what they call school-based threat assessment teams, where they look at the whole child, and that team is made up of an administrator, a law enforcement officer, and a mental health professional from the school district, where we try to catch kids that are maybe falling through the cracks before something bad happens. The other thing that Newtown really had been working on since I got there in 2008 was building a trusted relationship between every student and at least one school staff member. As I mentioned, when I first got there, that was non-existent. It's come a long, long way. And believe me, there's a lot of information to be gathered because these kids want these kids want to say something. So if they have somebody in the school that they can trust, we gain a lot of information that way. Structural enhancement is commonly known as building hardening or hardening the target. Following the tragedy at Sandy Hook, well, we received a lot of generous donations and grants to be able to do a lot of things. Built the brand new Sandy Hook school that has all the bells and whistles you could imagine. The big challenge was the other 6 schools in Newtown with the parents saying, hey, what about my kid's school? And they're right, what about their kid's school? So we were able to do a lot of things modeled off of Sandy Hook, maybe not to the exact specs of Sandy Hook, but we were able to do a lot of building hardening in our other 6 schools where at least we have some type of parity or equity amongst our schools. It's put parents at ease, it's put staff members at ease, it's put students at ease, and it's worked. Structural enhancement is the major component of the layering approach that we use for campus security in the Newtown Public Schools. I'm hoping this ring makes sense to you. I had a problem the way it fits in, but it's the layering approach to how we look at identifying a threat or stopping it. The green ring, the outermost ring, that's really where we want to keep any potential person with malintent. And that basically comes down to the planning aspect. Having an anonymous reporting app, which we do have in the Newtown schools, it allows students or parents or even staff members to report anonymously or not a safety and security concern, a bullying concern, some type of concern directly to the principal of that school, and have that principal be able to respond back pretty much immediately. Other things on the outer ring, fencing and signage, community engagement, the expectations, see something, say something, foliage and natural barriers and gates, things like that. In the olive ring, this is the layer on the peripheral of the school building, having enhanced two-way communications, environmental design, pavement markings, surveillance cameras, and at some of our schools, we actually have a security presence out at the entrance driveway, so we're vetting people and visitors before they get anywhere near the building. The next ring, the yellow ring, this represents the area immediately outside the school building structure. It's really the last line of defense before one enters the actual school building. Having things like locked doors, like as I mentioned previously, when I first got to Newtown in 2008, doors were open, unlocked. That's definitely has since changed shortly after I got there. Having a visitor vetting system, having an AI phone, which is basically a buzzer system outside the school, where a visitor rings a buzzer, security can see them on camera, do a visual inspection, find out the reason why they're at their school, and let them into the secure vestibule. So one of the things we were able to match with Sandy Hook, the new school building at the other schools, was secure vestibules at the main entrance. So if security buzzes somebody in, a visitor or a vendor during the school day, that person, just because they came through the first door, does not have access to the school yet. They're basically in a glass, for better lack of the word, man trap, where they can get visually inspected a second time, or if they're just there to leave something, let's say their student forgot to bring lunch or forgot to bring a project, can leave it in a bin or on a table without even needing entry to the school. One of the things we did since the tragedy is try to cut down the amount of unnecessary visits inside the school building. The orange ring, this represents the interior of the school building. Though it's not ideal, our hope is that these initiatives in this ring, the orange ring, and countermeasures would assist with threat identification and mitigation. Be it policy that staff have to wear their photo ID visibly throughout the school day, so the kids know who the staff is. That badge also allows staff members to access the card readers to get inside the school building. Having a universal key system. One lesson learned during Sandy Hook and in the aftermath is there was too much bifurcation of keys. For instance, Newtown High School consists of wings A through E. And back then, if you were an A wing teacher, your key only worked an A wing door, yet you could be an E wing at the gym or F wing at a computer lab. And if you ever had a lockdown, get into class or lock the door of a class, you wouldn't have had the key to do it. That's since changed. Two-way radio systems. We do outfit many staff members with two-way radios, not only just our school-based emergency response teams, but our physical ed teachers or any other teachers that would be conducting educational activities outside. We'll always exit the building with a two-way radio in hand. Our radio system allows administrators, security, and select others to directly contact the police department dispatch in Newtown directly without delay. The last ring, the red ring, this is the last line of defense. Basically, this comes down to staff and students and administrators falling back on their training, knowing what to do when a given situation provides itself, and the armed school security officers having to neutralize the threat as needed. Before I turn the presentation over to my SENTRY teammate, Michelle LeBoy, I just want to take a moment to thank those who've instilled confidence in a vast knowledge of school security in me. That's all my former superintendents that I've worked under the last 16 years, Janet Robinson, John Reed, Joe Arardi, Laurie Rodrigue, Chris Malillo, and Jean Ann Pattyfoot. Newtown's emergency management directors, Bill Halstead and Donna Colbert. Special thanks to Professor Tony Gentile of John Jay College, who's been with us since shortly after the tragedy for his expertise, as well as our Emergency Communications Director, Maureen Will. None of this in the last 16 years could have been done without the help of Newtown Police Chiefs Michael Keogh, James Viadero, and Dave Colgren. And a special thanks to my assistant, Sarah Connell, at the Newtown Public Schools for helping me put together this presentation today.